Hello?
Hello?
Hey, George?
Yes.
Hey, it's Tony Simon.
Hi, Tony.
Is Gina on
Hey,
as well?
Tony. Yeah, Gina's on.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Treasurer. He just reading through the memo really quick, and then he'll be on in 2 seconds. We'll be ready to launch it. So actually, he's ready. So whenever you want to launch
Okay. Hey, great. We're launching right now. Okay, the calls are going out right now. So, George, we're going to have the Senator start. So, Senator,
okay.
We're good to go. Okay, great. Thanks for joining us, Senator. We'd love to have you start with a few words about how you're fighting to help the middle class in Washington.
Thanks very much. We are facing in America a really extraordinary challenge for middle-class families in an economy in which a lot of money is being made, but it's all staying at the top of the income pile. And middle-class families are not seeing significant wage growth. They're dealing with college tuitions and college loans that are very high. We have seen efforts to protect the big banks when they've been misbehaving with foreclosures all around the country by our Republican colleagues, instead of being on the side of the middle-class folks whose homes got taken away because they lost their job. They've been siding with the big banks. We're fighting for fair tax rates for the middle class so that billionaires aren't paying lower tax rates to the federal government than a brickmaker does. And ultimately, more than anything else, we're trying to make sure that there are good jobs that pay a living wage that are not shipped overseas. And that battle is an important national battle, but it's also important to Rhode Island. That's where it's home for me. That's where it's home for us. That's where we've really got to win this battle. And I'm very behind Gina Raimondo because she has the plan that will move us in that direction, that will put Rhode Island's middle class first and invest in ways that will grow our way out of our economic troubles. So I'm honored to be on this call, and I will stand by to take any questions and comments that folks may have on the call, and we'll turn it over to my friend George Nee.
Great. And just to remind everybody, if you want to ask a question, just dial 0. Right, George.
Thank you, Senator. And I really appreciate the invitation to be on a call like this because I think this is one of the critical issues of our state and of our country. I think it's very important for people to understand that we cannot have a strong middle class. We cannot rebuild the middle class unless we have a strong labor movement. And in light of that, we need political leaders who understand that concept and understand that workers having purchasing power moves our economy, that we need to invest in people and infrastructure. We do not need policies that Alan Fung is promoting that would decrease the income of the average Rhode Island worker. And let me be a little more specific. Alan has proposed right-to-work legislation. The median household income in states with right-to-work is $6,437 less than states without it. The infant mortality rate is 15% higher in states with these laws. There is less investment in education. There are more people in low-wage occupations. This would be a failed policy and would decrease the income of Rhode Island workers. I think we need to look at somebody, and that somebody would be Gina Raimondo, who understands that we can be pro-jobs, pro-business, pro-growth, and yes, pro-worker and pro-labor. And usually I do not do this because I am the president of an organization and I am speaking personally at this time, but I unequivocally and fully support Gina Raimondo for the type of policies that she will bring to the state of Rhode Island to help increase and rebuild and strengthen our middle class. So I'm proud to be part of this.
Great. Thank you, George. Gina.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Senator, for taking your time and for your endorsement. And thank you, George, for your kind words. For me, it all goes back to where I came from, which is I was able to get ahead because my dad had a good manufacturing job, and my dad was the first guy in our family to go to college because he went to college on the GI Bill, and I was able to have a good education, which allowed me to be where I am. And that's important. And furthermore, my dad also had a good manufacturing job at the Bulliver Watch Factory, and that was a good middle-class life, which he was able to provide for my brother and my sister and me. And that is the kind of job that we need again in Rhode Island. I've said many times Rhode Island is in a jobs crisis, one of the highest unemployment rates in the country, and it's unacceptable. We have everything we need in this state to be great, but we need leadership who's going to turn the economy around and do it in a way that is pro-job and pro-business and pro-middle class all at the same time. We need to make college more affordable. We need well-funded and flourishing public schools. We need workforce development. We live in a world where high wages go to people with high skills, and everyone deserves a chance. It doesn't matter what zip code you're born into. You deserve access to high-quality, free public education so you can get the skills you need to get a high-wage job. We also live in a place, Rhode Island has the 5th highest student debt in the country, and college tuition rates are growing. Even at URI, tuition's grown 43% since 2008. So we need to make college more affordable. And as the senator said, the middle class is the heartbeat of the American economy, and we know that we need to rebuild the middle class. And creating jobs while empowering the middle class is the best way to revitalize our economy. We need to raise the minimum wage, because if you put money in the pockets of families, they spend it in the economy, and that's an economic stimulus. And 2/3 of minimum wage earners are women. And that's the right thing to do, and we need to do that. My opponent disagrees with me on that, but that's good economics, and it's the right thing to do. We need to create manufacturing jobs. We have an opportunity now to seize on this opportunity of manufacturing jobs coming back from Asia to America. Let's focus on what we can be great at: marine science, food science, medical science. We need to rebuild Rhode Island, rebuild our roads and our bridges and our schools, and put plumbers and pipe fitters and iron workers back to work doing that. And we need to transform our community college, CCRI, into a workforce development engine, so that if you're 18 and just starting out, or if you're 52 and you lost your job, you ought to be able to go to CCRI and get retrained to get a job. And that's why I'm running. And I couldn't agree more with George. Right to work is the wrong answer. We need to rebuild this economy in a way that includes everybody, and that is the only thing that's going to help Rhode Island, which is economic growth in a way that doesn't leave people behind.
Great. Thank you, Treasurer. So, again, remind everybody to ask a question for anyone here. Just dial 0, and we'll get to you. Let's go now to Donald in Johnston. Donald.
Yes.
Go ahead. Ask
Hello?
your question.
All right, my question is, everything that is being said is everything that we all know as voters. This has been regurgitated over and over and over again. It's nice to say all of these things that we need. What we want to know, or what I specifically want to know, is just how are you going to do this? I mean, it's easy to say we need this, we need that, we should do this, we should do that. But how are you going to get it done? That's all we hear from politicians, what we need. We know what we need. Tell us how you're going to do it.
Great. All right. Treasurer, why don't you start with that?
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Your question reminds me a lot of what people said to me when I first took office as treasurer, and I said, we're going to fix our failing pension system. And people said, oh, treasurer, we've been hearing about that for 20 years, and no one's been able to do it. But we did do it. We brought everybody together. I worked with the General Assembly. We had the courage to take on a tough issue, and we solved the crisis. And the answer is, you're exactly right. We know what we need to do, but we need to elect a leader will do it, who does what they say they're going to do. And I have a track record of getting things done. Before I came into office, I ran a business. I worked with dozens of small companies, created over 1,000 jobs. As treasurer, I tackled that pension crisis, and we solved the problem. And so now I am running for governor to take that track record of actually getting things done to do what we've said. And we can do it, right? Massachusetts has done it. Massachusetts has well-funded and flourishing public schools. They have transformed their economy. They have a school building authority which rebuilds public schools. And if I become the governor, we're going to do it too.
Great. And just again, a reminder to dial 0 for questions. Senator, why don't you take a whack at that question as well and some of the things that you're working on in D.C.?
Well, the first answer I have is that before you even get to how somebody's going to accomplish that, you've got to have the vision that is out there. And frankly, Gina's vision is very different from her opponents in that regard. So it's one thing to ask, I think, a very legitimate question about how you get that stuff done. The other fellow doesn't even want to get that stuff done, and he has bought into some very far-right economic agendas that I think have been proven unsuccessful in other areas. But they are the agenda of that party, and he's being faithful to that. Gina, I think, is making the kind of decisions and putting the priorities right that are first. There's no magic to getting this stuff done. You have to work with the Speaker. You have to work with the President of the Senate. You have to readjust your budget priorities and press forward. And I think Gina has demonstrated the leadership skills and the political courage and the determination to convince me, at least, that she can pull that group together. I've also seen her interact with the Speaker and with the President of the Senate, and I think they'll make a very strong team moving in this very good direction.
Excellent. George, please.
Well, I think that there's a couple of things. Some of the differences between Gina and Mayor Fung aren't necessarily related to budget issues, but they're a perspective and a point of view that doesn't require any funding. The difference in the minimum wage doesn't cost the state budget any money at all, but it does put more money into the pockets of workers who can then, as Gina mentioned, spend that money in the local economy. As I mentioned, having a perspective that decreases the power of workers, decreases their income, that's not going to help our state. That's going to put us, going even further backwards. And I think that one of the comments that she's made several times is we're not going to cut our way out of this issue, our budget problems. We're not going to tax our way out. We're going to grow our way out. And that's where smart, forward-looking public policies can make a difference. We've done this before. We have solved our workers' compensation crisis. I know Sheldon and I worked on that back in the 90s, and it's still a model for the country. If a leader, and I think Gina will be that leader, can bring business, government, labor, the nonprofit sector together, we will create an environment where we will solve these problems because we have to.
Great. Let's go to Mary in Pawtucket. Go ahead.
What makes you think that we can bring back manufacturing jobs?
Treasurer, why don't we start with you? The question was, what makes you think we can really bring back manufacturing jobs specifically?
Thank you, Mary, for the question. It's happening. Hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs have come back to America from China in the past several years. So it's a global trend. Energy prices are going up overseas. Labor prices are going up. The question is, how do we position Rhode Island to get our fair share of those jobs? And, manufacturers are going to go to places that have two things, innovation and skills. It's not my father's manufacturing. It's not the old jewelry manufacturers that we used to have in Rhode Island. It's higher skill, higher wage, higher technology. So, number one, we need to have close relationships between our community college and public colleges with manufacturers. We need to invite business to the table and tell us what skills that people need in order to be hired, and then we need to make sure we're training them in that. And then number two, we really just have to leverage the innovation coming out of all of our great colleges and universities. We have genuine strengths. Right downtown Providence, there's Rhode Island School of Design next to Brown, next to Rhode Island College. Manufacturers want to be near innovation coming out of those universities. So if we position ourselves, we ought to be able to attract our fair share of manufacturing jobs that are, in fact, coming back to America.
Great. Let's go to another question here. Let's go to Cheryl in Scituate. Cheryl?
Oh, hi. My question is this. With the dismal statistics regarding education in the state of Rhode Island, specifically the literacy rate and the dropout rate in the schools, what specifically, can we do to encourage our students to stay in school and help fulfill the promise of, careers in, as you were speaking about, what we're trying to draw into the state. We really don't have a well-trained population here, and part of that is because of the low literacy rate and the dropout rate.
Great. Okay. Treasurer, why don't you take that on workforce training?
So you asked the right question. We live in an economy now where high-wage jobs go to people with skills, and we're letting kids down if we don't give them the skills they need to be successful. That's why I've said so many times a high school diploma has to mean something. We need to keep our standards high. We need to make sure that we have a curriculum which is broad enough so that we're teaching young people the skills that they need in order to be successful. I see it with my own kids. I have two little kids in the Providence Public School System. They need to learn more and different things than even when I was in school. So we need to make sure that we're teaching kids that. And we need to treat teachers like the professionals that they are and empower them to have flexibility to teach kids and also support teachers. Give them the professional development and the tools and the training that they need to be successful, and then hold teachers accountable, like the professionals that they are. But I'll tell you this, it's not just money. We spend about as much per pupil in Rhode Island as in Massachusetts, and they have much better results. So, it's about leadership. It's about I am committed. As governor, I believe strongly that every child in Rhode Island deserves access to a high-quality, free public education. And you start with that commitment, and then with the vision, and then just accountability. Let's stick to it until our public schools work for everyone. And I think we can learn a lot from Massachusetts because they have made, great strides over the past 20 years.
Great. Thank you. Senator, why don't you take that question as well on workforce training?
Well, a little bit depends on what age you're getting kids at. One of the things that I've discovered is that we're starting to lose kids as early as middle school, and we need to make sure that our schools are really, really engaged on concerns about truancy and attendance, and to make sure that the parents are engaged, because at that age, parents need to know if their child's not showing up for school. It gets a little bit to be a different set of problems when somebody's a high school senior and they're looking to make sure that they've got the skills they need to get a first job or to prepare themselves for technical training or university. But you've got, as Gina said, you've really got your eye on the right question, because this economy is not only faster than it used to be, but every year it speeds up. And it's going to be harder and harder for people to stay with a relevant set of skills through a whole lifetime. And that means that we have got to prepare Rhode Island to support our workforce with lifetime learning so that we are able to have the kind of workforce that will bring in the jobs. Back to the last question, I visit a lot of manufacturers in Rhode Island. Some of them are making absolutely world-class stuff. People come from all over the country to buy these manufactured products from these Rhode Island specialists. And many of them say that the thing that's holding their growth back is the difficulty to find trained people who can actually do the job that they have in their factory. It's just gotten much more complicated, requires much more computer literacy, and so forth. So those two things pull together, education and economic development. But great question.
Great. Let's go to Henry in Cranston, and George, why don't we have you take the first stab at this one? Henry.
Hi.
I hope it's an easy one.
I was just wondering, how do you think that somebody who is just out of college will be able to obtain a decently paying job?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I think we have a lot of things in place right now that are working but need to be expanded on. One of the things I'd like to reference is under the Governor's Workforce Board, one of the things that's been done in the last 2 years is to expand the concept of apprenticeship programs, which are probably the best job training program going back to the founding of our country. It's been primarily used in the building trades and has been extremely successful as a business labor cooperative model. We need to expand those apprenticeship programs outside of the building trades. It's starting to happen now. It used to happen in manufacturing. We went away from that. So that is how we're going to get the skilled workers that can get the high wages. And as both Sheldon and Gina mentioned, it is happening. We are rebuilding America. It's starting to happen. We need to be there, and there are programs that work. They need to be evaluated, and they need to be expanded, and there'll be opportunities. The other thing I would suggest is that I believe that vocational schools, unfortunately, have been the stepchild of our educational system. We have some terrific examples in Rhode Island, one being Davies. We don't have to go to Worcester, as some people have suggested to look at that. We can go to Davies, we can go to Newport, go to Warwick. Those schools really have to be seen as an integral part of our educational system and not as a stepchild. And those are the things that will encourage young people to take those programs. I'll just say as an aside, I have a young man that lives across from me at my house. He graduated from the Cranston Vocational Technical Program. He was looking for a job. I suggested he go to Verizon. His computer skills from graduating as a high school graduate, he's now working for $24 an hour for Verizon. Trained in the Cranston Vocational School System, he got a good job. There are opportunities for people.
Great, George. Thank you. Let's just get in Gina and the Senator here. Gina, just a reminder, the question is about how to make sure that young people who are graduating our schools can stay in Rhode Island.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the only thing that I would add to that is, as governor, I'm going to create a student loan forgiveness program. So many young people are coming out of college today buried under student loans. I know I was when I got out of law school. And what they've done in other states, like in New Hampshire, is they create a student loan forgiveness program. And here's how it works. You partner with local companies, and local companies have a look at college students that are coming out of Rhode Island colleges, and they agree to pay back some or all of a student's student loans as long as the student works in Rhode Island at that company for a period of time. And it works beautifully, because the fact is, if you are a company in Rhode Island, what you need is talent. And if you're a student, you need a job and to help with your student loans. So I think this would be a great program to help young people, and also to get young, talented people to stay in Rhode Island, because we can't afford a brain drain. You know, in this economy, we need young people with skills, and this will help them to stay here.
Great, thank you, Senator.
Let's go ahead on to another question. I think that one's been well answered.
Oh, excellent. Well, you know what? I was just actually going to kick it over, Senator, to you for any closing remarks you may have. Any other ideas you have, and you and the great federal delegation are working on to help middle-class families, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, my experience in government began working under Governor Bruce Sundlun. Some of our listeners may remember him. He was the last Democrat that we elected to the governor's office. And if you think back to that time period and all of the reforms that were made, all of the progress that was made, all of the changes that were made, all of the improvements that were made, everything from the first Right Care Health program to laying the foundation for the convention center and the Westin Hotel, to taking our workers' comp system from the worst in the country to the best in the country. Over and over again, we showed that a Democrat governor will roll up their sleeves and get things done. It's been a long time since we've had that. Gina Raimondo has the energy and the brains and the drive to move this state forward. I don't need to tell anybody on this call how much we need that, and I hope very much that as Election Day comes up on November 4th, you'll cast your ballot for her for our governor.
Great. Thank you, Senator. Treasurer.
Thank you. Just thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you to the Senator and George for joining. It's time. I couldn't agree more with the Senator. We haven't had a Democrat, and as a result, things haven't gotten done. And it's time for a governor who knows how to solve big problems, who isn't afraid to take on the toughest issues, and who can pull everybody together to get things done. And right now, the number one job of the governor is to get Rhode Island back to work. And I know I can do that, and it's been wonderful to be on the line with you guys this afternoon.
Great. Thank you. George Nee, any last remarks?
Well, I'm going to close with where I started. I think in order for us to go forward, and I think our best days are ahead of us, we need a governor who is pro-jobs, pro-business, pro-growth, pro-worker, and pro-middle class. And again, personally, I believe that person is Gina Raimondo, and I look forward to voting for her in November.
Great. Thank you very much, George. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.